Hello and welcome to Season 4 of the Sunday Podcast, presented by SportsShoes.com. I'm Ollie Lum.
And I'm Matt Seddon.
This podcast is all about elite distance running in the UK.
We're here to give you all the latest news updates around the sport,
as well as weekly interviews with athletes and coaches.
Stay up to date by following us on Instagram and X at Sunday Podcast.
And make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel too, where we post athlete workout videos, shoe reviews and more.
Thanks for listening, and as always, we hope you enjoy the episode.
Hello and welcome back to another episode. Slightly different format from the usual this week. We're joined by Race Director for Sports Shoes, Chris Barnes, to preview the upcoming Podium Festival event. So that's coming up in a couple of weeks' time, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled for that. As well as previewing his own event, Chris was kind enough to join us in talking about all of the latest news and updates around the distance running scene, particularly in the UK, as normal. So we hope you enjoy the episode with Chris, and we hope you're enjoying watching the World Indoor Champs at the moment. We'll catch you very soon. Okay, Barnesy, welcome back to the podcast. You came on before a couple of years ago now. I'll make sure I link that in the description for anyone who wants to go back and listen to your ramblings about Podium from a few years ago. But how are you, first of all, mate? We're here to talk about the festival, but how are you personally, mate?
No, I'm good. I'm good, Mum. Yeah, thanks for having me back. You're obviously scraping the barrel now, you know. It's I was slightly concerned about following George and Charlie. I thought that were a good old episode last week.
Well, you know, our ties with Sports Shoes and yourself, you've got a big event coming up, so we kind of had to get you on. You almost ordered to come onto the podcast, mate. So here we are.
Desperation.
But let's actually talk to people, because it is actually a big event that is coming up, and an event that needs discussing, and I think people need to know about it if they don't already. And I think there's so many entries and so many athletes who are actually going to head to Leicester in 2 weeks' time. That they probably want to understand a little bit what they're getting themselves into as well. So Podium Festival, Barnesy, what is it?
So originally this started where, obviously you've seen it for the past two and a half years, where we've had podiums on and various brands have sponsored just on their own as a sort of a marketing ploy or a way to get the new shoes launched, etc. Whereas on this one, we've managed to get 9 brands involved. The original idea came where we were going to call it Battle of the Brands, where the brands would literally go up against each other. But I think that it was watered down a little bit. That the title didn't really suit what the brands wanted to do, you know. So we've come up with Podium Festival. It's still the same thing where the brands still want to win it. So they're all sort of putting the best athletes forward. And every time, for example, an Asics puts someone faster in, New Balance or Adidas or various other brands just come up with someone better from further afield. So it's going to be good.
Yeah, awesome. And it's something that I think on a kind of a global scale that many people, including ourselves, have spoken about as maybe perhaps the kind of way forward in the future, isn't it? A bit more kind of team-orientated competition around the brands. Do you think maybe kind of this Leicester event could be a catalyst for some more of that in the future?
Yeah, hopefully, Ollie. Yeah, I think, like you said, I know it's been tried before with team events in whether it's been UK or on track events and whatnot. For some reason, it's not taken off. It's took off in triathlon on a big scale. You know, it's probably introduced a lot of us to triathlon through Super League. So if they can do it in athletics and running, then yeah, it'd be great.
Yeah, and I think it is something that brands have shied away from, haven't they? That direct competition, although they are always in competition. But just talk about, you know, the team aspect. Just to be clear, there won't be any team titles at kind of Podium Festival, will there?
No, there's no team titles. I think if you sport to every brand individually, they would want their athlete or their athletes to be at the forefront of that podium, that race, that taking that title. But no, there's no team aspect as such.
But there is a shed load of prize money individually as well. So run us through that.
There is, yeah. So there's we're paying down to 10th on this. The first prize is £2,500. There's also record prize money from 5,000 for British record, 5,000 for European record, and 10,000 for a world record, which apparently is something which is being banded about by a certain athlete. So that's exciting. And then we've also got course records, which I think will get obliterated on the day. Don't quote me on what them course records are, but obviously we've got course records from, I think, Cali, Thackeray, and the Birchfield area, Omar Ahmed.
Oh crap! Because it's going to be in Leicester, so I was thinking those Barrowford course records, but yeah, it's in Leicester.
Yeah, so there's some nice easy cash to take home for these guys, which is what it's all about, getting cash to athletes.
Yeah, definitely. And let's talk through some of those athletes. Like, who can we expect, and who are kind of the main brands driving that interest as well?
Yeah, I mean, in the ladies' field, it seems like there's a bit more of a coming from Europe and further afield. So there's also Melissa Courtney Bryant, who's probably the fastest in the field to press. Carla Gallardo, who's a Puma athlete coming from Spain. Verity Ockenden, she's fairly exciting because we saw what she did in Newcastle in that 5K trial on what weren't, in my opinion, a fast course, and she sort of solo around were at 15:10. So she could go fast. Amelia Quirk's another one that's exciting, again, because we all know what talent Quirky's got if she can stay in one piece. And then, as I say, there's a few Europeans, Alex Millard, and then the usual protagonists that we see on the UK road scene. Rebecca Johnson, Kate Axford, so on and so on, Georgia Gregg. In the men's field, Robin Hendricks was the fastest in the field up until this morning. And Robin has quite openly said he's going for a European record. So that's exciting. Vinnie Magnussen, as we all know about, Nick Griggs, Tom Evans, the ultra runner, who can turn his hand to a fast 5K and did do it at Berrowford 2.5 years ago. Still in top 20 on that UK all-time list. Will Barnicoat is entered, but I do believe has got a slight niggle, so maybe missing. Joe Wigfield, Ben McMillan. Ben McMillan's going for a Scottish record, which, again, that's a Scottish under 23, I think, record. But as I said, the latest entry, which is, I think, fairly exciting, is Hagos Gebruit, who's got, I think, a PB of 12:51. So it's going to go quick.
Jesus, Barnesy, is that confirmed? Hagos
Yeah, that's confirmed.
Wow.
That's confirmed, yeah. So you've heard it here first.
Yeah, and I've scanned over those entry lists as well. It is a very, very deep domestic field. I mean, you've picked out a few names there, but virtually everyone I can think of over 5,000 in the UK on the men's and women's side is pretty much doing Podium Festival. Is that correct?
There's five. I think there's 546 sub-16 entries.
Jeez,
I can't remember exact number of sub-15 entries, but it was something like 100, 180, 190. In the ladies, there's something like 280 female sub-19, maybe 200 sub-18, and so again, you know, we've potentially got two elite ladies races going off at once. The A race in the men's is sub 14:15 to get into that A race. Ironically, like even to get into the C race, you've got to be sub 14:45. So it's bonkers.
Yeah, that is bonkers, mate. Was there any kind of thought about potentially putting the women in with one of the men's races? Because I know obviously we've seen on the marathon circuit recently, like there's been some class performances from running in mixed races. I'm not sure how that would affect 5K and 10K road records, to be honest, though.
But it affects the record slightly. Like, for example, the European record, I think, is 14:45 for a mixed race and 14:46 maybe for a female-only race. So it doesn't affect it that much. The only thing that I think it might affect is whether it has an impact on Olympic qualifying times.
Yeah, good point. Because it's obviously got its World Athletics license, which you mentioned or released a little while ago, and I think that's attracting bigger names. And then on just attracting big names, I mean, you've come a long way from your events up in Barrowford. Obviously, they've got bigger and bigger, and you're doing amazing things, especially domestically in the sport. The next step for Podium and your races, is it to look to attract international, lineups to the UK to do these fast 5K races, 10K races, whatever distance you may want to put on?
I think the level of work that's gone into putting this on, and I think we've discussed it in the past, might mean that this is just a one-off fixture per year, and then we continue with a sort of smaller, more domestic races throughout the year that go, whether they're in London or Hereford or Leicester, Cardiff, but we keep them going, but maybe put just a bit of focus on just one big race in UK once a year. And I think it'd be exciting to potentially then take Podium into Europe, whether it's in Germany, Spain, or Italy, wherever. But I think that's probably the next step for Podium to go into Europe.
Yeah, I think that's a great shout, mate. And I think definitely this time of year, look, we've seen with the likes of Boston Indoor, people going there to get their standards. People can get their standards on the road, and if we find the right course, the right weather, the right time of year, and like Matt mentioned, that World Athletics license, I do think it could potentially turn into something that people kind of look to in their calendar and think, actually, that's where I'm going to go chase my standard early season and before the track races start, for instance.
Yeah, and I suppose now that you can get Olympic qualifying times and world ranking points and things from road races now, I imagine the top athletes are looking at road races more and more at this time of year.
And just quickly, Barnes, you talk about the level of work gone into this race. And you're always a man with great ideas. How do you kind of put these ideas into motion? How do you get these races off the ground to the level you have done?
This one's been a lot more difficult. I mean, even getting things like drug testing in place and World Athletics license, the cost alone is it's over £3,000 for drug testing. So I think that's why we don't see it on these domestic races. The world license alone was £1,200. So it's a lot of expense that goes into it. I mean, Podium's in a lucky position now that SportsShoes have got it, that it's not designed to make money anymore. It's designed to put on good races and try and change things a little bit and listen to what athletes want. And as I say, it's incredibly lucky that I can kind of do what I want with that. And and so far it's working well.
You excited for the event, or are you a bit nervous because it is kind of becoming so big? There's a lot of hype. You mentioned obviously some of the names that are coming in, and it's, I guess, a lot of responsibility as well.
No, to be honest, excited to be honest. I mean, as I said, we've been planning it for quite some time, so there's been a few headaches along the way, but no, just excited now. It's what is it, 2.5, 3 weeks away now? As I said, you kind of hope it takes off, and you kind of hope that all these top athletes get involved, but that's never a guarantee. So yeah, it's just exciting now that they're all entered and ready to go.
And something which is probably worth bringing up with yourself, actually, that was released this week, Michael Johnson, he wants to start up a new track league with partnering with Winners Alliance, I believe it was. We don't actually know too much about it, how it's going to look, what it's going to look like, what kind of athletes it's going to cater for, and they're going to be able to participate in it. But it's a question that we put out on our socials, Barnes. I mean, does the sport need more competitions, or do we actually just need to make the competitions that we have more meaningful?
I'll be honest, I've not really read too much on it. Reading at some of the things that Michael Johnson puts on social media, he's obviously passionate about improving it. He raises pretty good points around things that most of us think are wrong with track and field. I don't think we need another race series or batch of races, whatever you want to call it. But you would think with his passion and his ideas, another set of track races would have invited him in. So has he been turned down for some reason? That's why he's doing it this way. I don't know. But like you say, I don't think. I think there's too many fixtures. It's going to be the same athletes, probably the same venues. I don't think it's needed myself, but let's see.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? Because like you say, all it will do, I guess, potentially, is just replace the Diamond League, and it will end up being the same thing. So I don't know. Like you say, Barnes, maybe we just need to reboot the Diamond League format a little bit.
Either that or else it'll dilute it. It's gonna. So yeah, no, I don't think it's needed. But there must be a reason why he's not been invited in with his ideas and his passion into other meets.
I think the bottom line is, if athletics continues how it is, where the world champs and Olympic games are the biggest things that athletes can go to, that's how their contracts are decided, that's what they want to do, then they are just going to be particular about their performances, because to be honest, 60-70% of them have to be, because one, they've got to nail a ridiculously hard standard first, so they can't be doing too many races. They got to handpick their races. This is obviously just from a distance point of view that we're talking about here. And then two, they can't go into a championship kind of over raced, over tired again, so they're kind of picking and choosing their races and what they can get into, and that's it. So I don't see what kind of athletes it attracts. Maybe it would probably attract the sub elites more than anything, to be honest with you, or those kind of on the cusp who aren't going to worlds, because those who are making world finals, they go to diamond leagues, they're picking up big paychecks. And I mean, Barnes, you might be more educated in this, but you've clearly got a very good feel coming to this Podium Festival. You attract big names to a large majority of your races. What is the determining factor? How do you get big names to races? Is it literally just put prize money on the table, or
I'd like to think it's reputation, to be fair. I think Podium's always been built on listening to what people want and when people want races putting on. And obviously that's kind of put it where it is now. I think for this one, as I say, obviously the prize money's had a big factor. But as I say, I think maybe hopefully reputation means that they think it's going to be fast, and they think it's going to have a big stack field, which it does. Getting the world license were a big factor. I mean, the amount of agents that have got in touch to try and get foreign athletes involved is unbelievable. So
it's interesting. I mean, there you go. Then you mentioned reputation, and I think a lot of athletes, they from a distance point of view, they want to go to Boston because of its reputation, and obviously we know it's fast. They want to go to Sound Running in a couple of weeks' time because again, they know it's fast, and they know they can bag a qualifying standard there. And I think it's going to be very difficult to attract those athletes who are looking for those times into this track. I don't know how it's going to look. It could be good, but I don't know how they're going to be able to motivate athletes to want to be a part of it and want to do it, unless we see like stuff that we've seen in golf and whatnot, where there's just massive paydays for athletes. And obviously that's the easiest one. They'll just walk straight across and they'll stop doing diamond leagues and they'll go straight into this track league.
I think there's that, or else, again, I'm sure you guys have mentioned it on your podcast before, where you look at other sports like cricket, who have reinvented themselves, snooker reinvents itself, and darts has reinvented itself. And, it's fast, it's furious, it's over in a matter of hours rather than dragging out all day long. So maybe, and again, I've not read it, if Johnson's trying to condense it and make it exciting and loud and fast and, something that's more of a spectacle on TV that's only going to last 60 minutes, 90 minutes rather than 3, 4, 5 hours, then good, brilliant.
Yeah, like I said, there's actually not much information on it at all, so we can't even comment too much on it either. I think it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how the relationship between whatever he's trying to put on and World Athletics and the rest of the governing bodies, how that kind of forms and blossoms over kind of when it starts and over the next few years. If it's going to kind of rival them or if it's going to support them, and if it's going to support them, how? Because we've already got over 100 World Tour meetings a year, bronze, silver and gold, and we've got and we got 15, 16 Diamond League meetings as well. So yeah, it will be interesting for sure.
Let's get an indoor track with walk-on music and a load of rowdy people on infield drinking beer around tables and shouting and holding placards up.
I know that is your fantasy, mate. When are you going to do it? When are you going to put this in motion?
I think it'd be good. I think, like I said, let's take a snippet of that World Championship darts and put it on an indoor track. I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be unruly and just, like I said, a bit fast and furious.
Your idea is to have benches just like they do in the darts on the infield of indoor track, get people running around.
Let's get 30 tables on the infield, all drinking, eating junk food, writing abusive messages on placards and waving in my athletes' faces and I think it'd be amazing. I think it'd be really good. Maybe that's what Johnson's doing. Maybe he's heard it.
Chris, will we see you doing that next winter?
Maybe.
Maybe. Doesn't want to promise us anything. Look, one other thing we wanted to ask you about, Chris, obviously kind of big news, and from a race organizer, maybe you're a bit more sympathetic than some people have been, but national cross country has obviously been cancelled due to flooding, but of the car park, not the course. I think it's important to clarify. What were your thoughts on this? And Matt and I were actually chatting earlier about kind of how it's been moved to September, but we can get into that in a bit as well.
No, to be honest with you, I'm not that sympathetic. I think it's a disgrace that they've chose a venue that's not fit for purpose. I think when you put on something like a cross country event, it's going to have like 3,000-4,000 people turning up. First protocol is parking, probably more important than your course. Other things fall into place, toilet facilities, costs, that sort of thing. We've spent a fortune, or I believe we've spent a fortune on big sort of fancy estates that have hosted cross countries for the past few years. Parliament Hill seems to be the only one that works around transport facilities, etc. There's loads of towns with ample parking, industrial estates, and the right facilities, but also next to them is farmland. And farmland, like they did at Dublin. I don't know if you I'm sure both you were there, Lam. I was there with you. Dublin cross country, where they had a man-made cross country course in middle of Dublin. Loads of parking facilities, loads of public transport. It's doable, and I'm sure that if you paid a farmer £5,000 rather than what you paid, what is believed to be £16,000-17,000 to a big estate, a farmer would create an amazing course with parking facilities on local industrial estates, and you do it. I think they need to condense the number of venues they use, and they need to use on either a rolling sort of situation where you use four venues on a 4-year basis, or you use 4 venues, and whoever wins the cross country at that last one chooses where they go year after. Out of them 4.
Yeah, I even think it adds a bit to the event, really. Like, I think a lot of us think about Parliament Hill just synonymously with National Cross, in the same way that Liverpool is called or referred to as Liverpool, not the Euro British Athletics Cross Challenge Trials or whatever it is, the official name. Like, it's referred to as Liverpool because the course is part of the event, and it historically has been.
Well, Liverpool's a perfect example on that. It's in the middle of the city. It's a big park in the middle of a city, and there's no problems with it. The weather's not much different in October to what it is now. So in March, so I don't get how they can get it so wrong. I personally, I think as well, like I said, 3,000-4,000 people go. Do they need to condense it to where they go back to 9 athletes, make the field smaller, make them more elite?
What do you mean by 9 athletes? Well, 9 athletes per team. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So if you, obviously years ago it were 9 athletes per club that could enter. Which now you
at the whole championship, or is that just a senior men's race?
No, all of it. Sorry, no, each race.
Yeah.
So obviously you're getting less athletes there. You're probably getting better fields there doing it that way.
It's a discussion we've had a few times as well, because obviously at the National Cross you have the lap runners as well, and it's something we've mentioned and spoke about on this podcast as before. And obviously the inter-counties format where you qualify for your county is relatively a big deal. Obviously that's an event as well, to be honest, over the last few years has been fading away. And I just personally, I would just put it down to the time of year that these major cross countries are.
I think the season's too long. That inter-county's been, when is it, March? It's way too late. You're qualifying for your county at first week of January, and then you're not racing for, what's that,
2 months,
2 months later.
Yeah.
So inter-counties either needs to go back to January, or maybe they combine into counted and national cross together, and that's your curtain closer. There's too many league fixtures. The entire season. I mean, you started in September.
Look, well, talking to September, Nationals got postponed to September, so that's going to kickstart our cross country season. Would you like to see it stay there? Is that a good way? Start with a national, finish with a Liverpool cross, boom, and you're done and dusted in 2 months.
No, you can't miss Mansfield. Oh yeah, Mansfield's before Liverpool, isn't it?
Yeah, Mansfield, exactly.
Yeah. No, works well.
Yeah, Matt and I were saying it's going to be exciting watching sort of who turns up to that national this year now in September, and thinking, wow, they are sharp coming into kind of form in September. But who's holding that to Liverpool, to be honest? So we will see.
Do you think it's needed? Do you think it's needed in September? Would it just write it off? It's gone.
I thought they were going to write it off, but I guess maybe refunding entries and all that kind of stuff is too much of a loss for the governing body to handle. So it's easier to postpone it, isn't it?
I guess so. Again, I think they should have tied it in. Where's Intercounty this year? What park is it?
Yeah, it is back to Woollerton.
Just shove it in that.
Yeah.
Shove National inside that. They've got a facility book. They've got, it's obviously got ample parking. Course is big enough. Just put it inside that. Kill two birds with one stone, and that's your national for 24 done.
Yeah, Woollerton is
starting in September is bonkers.
Well, it will be interesting. In many ways, I think it will be just as popular, to be honest with you, because you look at the kind of names who will prepare and do national cross. They can easily cut track seasons short. I mean, we were never going to have the likes of, on the men's side, I guess people like Jack Rowe and Mohammed and those people weren't entered this year anyway. So, they can focus on whatever goals they've got over the summer. But for the sub-elites, I feel like it's a winner. And they were all the people who were targeting national cross in February. And I feel like they can still do that in September. So I don't think it'll be that much different.
Why not make Liverpool the national? Then you've got them all there.
It's kind of like
you've got them all there.
It virtually is, isn't it?
Yeah, I consider the winner of Liverpool is the best cross country runner in the UK. Like, regardless who wins the national, who wins into counties, like because so much is on the line. Like, if you want to be considered a good cross guy or girl, you want to go to the Euros, don't you? So you're going to be at Liverpool, and that is basically our national champs. They do get a trophy though, don't they, or a medal of some sort still. But it's just a cross challenge one. So
they used to get little SportsShoes T-shirt a couple of years ago. But yeah, no, I think I agree with you, Phil. I think that's the best race on the calendar, and probably best course on with Parliament Hill. I imagine if you were to put a vote out, I imagine most people would vote for Parliament Hill and Liverpool as top two courses in country.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. Right, let's get into more news then, because obviously we've seen the announcement of some Olympians already, or some soon to be Olympians of the marathon teams. Callie Thackeray, Charlotte Purdue, and Phil Sesman have already been announced for Tokyo in the Tokyo. I said this last week as well. I kept saying Tokyo, for Paris. Sorry, in the marathons. So congratulations to them. Thoughts, guys? I know Matt and I spoke about this last week. We sort of said we thought that's what was going to happen. It's sort of what we expected. What are your thoughts, Chris?
I think the three choices are spot on. I'm surprised Emil's not been announced in that as well. Regardless of whether there's a ruling that if you're going to do a marathon in between announcement and Paris, anything can happen. But I think Emil has already shown his class over at marathon and got the time. So I'm surprised at that. But yeah, it's
on Emil,
do the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they were obvious, weren't they? I think and Emil is probably the only one you add to that. We definitely add him, but with him supposedly doing London, I've heard the bills will be announced next week, so we'll try and bring you those once they get announced. But obviously, Emil went and ran 60 minutes, pretty much dead for the half, 60:02. speculating, what do we reckon he can do in London now with that sort of half marathon? I mean, are we looking for a 2:05 performance?
It makes London exciting, doesn't it? I mean, I suppose, like you say, rumour mill is that Mark, Mohamed, and Emil are all doing it. So if Emil's running 60 flat in Napoli, is he run 2:05? So if you're Mark and Mohamed, leave him. Or do you chase him? You know?
Yeah. Got to leave him, really.
Mm.
I mean, I think the minimum for Mark or Mohammed is just to be that next person in, isn't it? Be that second Brit across the line if Emil does do it.
But they've still got to go sub what? 2:8:10?
Yeah, which I think they're both pretty capable of doing it. I mean, Mohammed was just fraction behind Sesman in Valencia. He's had more time to prepare, and if all goes well in London, and the advantage they have as well is Mark's. Well, from speaking to Mark, there's going to be a pretty good pace group up front that are going to help Mark out as well. So there's going to be a very good group around about that 2:8:10 mark. So if the weather's good, I can see him doing it, and maybe even Mohammed getting below that as well.
Yeah. No, I agree.
Yeah, that's where I almost think it becomes a bit somewhat risky for Emil, because I think he is capable of running, like you say, Matt, like a 2:05, and I think he ran a really measured run in London last time. So yeah, you go out at 2:05, but then what happens if that then backfires? I'm not saying I think it will. I think Emil, and especially working with Canova, I think he'll be super prepared. But as we know, like marathons, you never really know what's going to happen. And what you go off at 2:05, you pop. Mohammed and Mark both beat you. Then you're like, okay, well, why would they select you? So it's
I think that's why it's a stupid rule, isn't it? Because Emil's proved he can run the time. We all want Emil to go and run something ridiculous at London, but as you say, it's a risk. So they're potentially curtailing him from running something crazy rather than just running enough to qualify. But like I say, I think I'd rather see him go for something stupid and blow, knowing that he's going to Paris.
Knowing that he's going to Paris. Yeah. Agree with that. And then on the women's side, is it just going to be the next fastest that they should? I mean, it's all to run for, to be honest, on the women's side in London. You expect Rose Harvey, but someone that people have kind of stopped talking about, and she has been a little bit quiet. We used to see in her race quite a lot, is Sam Harrison. I mean, I'm kind of looking at her thinking if she gets London right, she'll be on that team.
I can only presume she's been injured, but Harrison. I thought, is it Clara Evans ran a crazy time somewhere, and not a surprising run, but a fairly surprising run. And then, like you say, Rose Harvey. Who else is going to step in? There must be someone else that might step up as well and do something at that time that's under radar. So,
okay, man. There's not too much else. We've obviously got World Indoors, which is going to pretty much be done and dusted by the time you lot are listening to this. But Barnes, are we going to see just quickly Muirka and Riki will win? Are we going to get 3 golds?
Yeah, and you've also got the pole vaulter who seems to be the one on form. So maybe they'll
Barnes, this is a distant podcast, Barnes.
Well, apologies.
I'm only joking. We're fans of the sport as well. Obviously, Molly Caudry is top world lead at the moment, and
forget the jumpers, forget the sprinters.
That's it. What event are you guys most looking forward to outside of distance? Because I know, Matt, you always say this, and then every championship you're batting on about sprints every podcast because you get too into it. So what are you most looking forward to outside of distance events, guys?
Outside of distance events?
Yeah. Do you know all the other events in Track and Field, Barnes? Can you list them?
Pole vault.
No,
honestly, I don't know. To be honest with you, I'm a bit like you, so I'm probably just a bit obsessed with anything over sort of 800 and up. I don't get much excitement about anything below that. So,
Actually, I mean, on the 800s, obviously that guy Limot's news is clear they're not going to take him, but they did add. We didn't mention last week because we recorded before the news was announced that Hannah Nuttall was obviously, she made the team. They accepted her invitation. I think that's where the kick in the teeth for Limot is the fact that British Athletics um, they come out and say we're not going to accept invites, but then they have done. And they obviously, Lemont has had an invite and hasn't been. They haven't accepted it and they haven't taken him to the champs. I personally think if you don't win your national champs in kind of convincing fashion, because it wasn't like Lemont lost to Max Bergin or Ben Patterson or someone like that. He came second to someone who it's probably fair to say isn't at the level to go to a world championships right now. And so is Limont at that level?
Do you not feel this is just
I
the
can see
problem?
both sides. I can see both sides basically.
This is just a problem, isn't it, with UKA? Like it's never black and white. It's there's always a grey area that they can use to their advantage, and whether they don't fancy Learman, whether he's not performed in past champs when he's represented Great Britain, I'm not sure, but it's just always never black and white as to who they're going to take. It'll be the same with marathon. Something will turn them on to someone else, and they'll choose whoever they want to choose if it works for them. You saw it. Obviously, there was a bigger debate about that last year. We had more publicised debate on that with Alex Bell and Izzy Boffey. But I suppose Bell's time were supposedly after cut-off time. But then Bell's argument was probably that she would get herself into a pomp ready for Olympics. So, I think Learmon's been unlucky. But again, I just don't rate how they do the selection. I don't agree with it. But
positive that could come out of this if there is some sort of athlete alliance that forms and they get British Athletics to change their selection policy and change the way about things. That would be a big positive.
Yeah, absolutely.
Guess the travel costs this year for Worlds are quite high, so you can't really blame them too much, can you?
I mean, that's the sad part, isn't it? The guy's what he's. I mean, he's not ready to retire by any stretch, but he's it's in his own town.
Yeah, it's bonkers, isn't it? It's like any home champs, like that's where you sort of like, what really is your kind of your excuse there? You're just denying it for the sake of denying it, rather than I don't know.
You speak to any Scottish athlete that took part in Commonwealth Games in 2015 or something, and they all talk about the atmosphere, and they've kind of pinched that from him. So I feel for him on that side, but like you said, maybe if he can't win his British champs, is there any point in taking him? I don't know.
All right, man. And just finally, obviously, Inter-Counties next weekend. We'll be looking forward to that. I have heard there's a few big entries as well, obviously with a World Cross spot up for grabs. And then the following weekend will be the Podium Festival, where athletes from far and wide will flock to Leicestershire to do a few laps of that circuit. And something we didn't mention, actually, Barnes, which we probably should, is there is obviously the time trial event as well.
There is, yeah. No, you're right. We missed out the time trial, which is got some quiet athletes this time. We used this previously in August at Berrowford, and we're repeating it where athletes will go off on 1 minute intervals, literally racing the clock. In the men's side, James West returns, so as does James Young. James Young was second last time to Wickfield, so James Young returns. Tom Dodd is also in there, who probably is one of the favourites. And in the ladies' side, we've got Brinton Hubbard, who everyone knows about, pretty consistent. We've got a Dutch athlete called Marissa Damink, who I don't know too much about. I think she's got maybe like a 201 800, I think. Hannah Nuttall and Erin Wallace is the latest entry on that, so it's looking good.
Very strong.
Awesome, mate. And what's the
even
confirmation
stronger,
of the date of that?
Even stronger, the commentary team for that event is Jeff Whiteman, Hannah England, and James Thee. And
I'll say a few words as well. Yes, I look forward to it. But no, I think it's gonna be fantastic in everything that we love about the sport. I mean, there's gonna be fans on the infield. There's gonna be loads of brands. It's gonna be almost like an event village there as well, isn't there? It's gonna be food, drink, and it's gonna last a few hours. But in the evening is when we're gonna see those key core races. Almost kind of like Highgate-esque as well. Each race will get faster, won't it?
Yeah. Now, as I said, the final race is sub 14:15, and there's 80 guys in that, so it's going to be good.
Yeah, and that
We just got
podium
to
race
pray for that British
obviously.
weather.
Yeah, that podium race obviously 16th of March, Saturday. So make sure you go check it out if you're local, or if you're supporting athletes and going with them too. So Barnes,
Free
thanks so
entry.
much for coming
Free
on,
entry
mate.
for the spectators. Yeah, no problem.
There
Cheers,
you go,
guys.
free entry. Yeah, thank you very much, mate. And thanks for listening, guys.